Okay, it is Southside Sox on the Farm Podcast number 21, and we are profiling what Darren has just told me is the least interesting team in the system. So turn your volume up and pay extra attention to this one because it is the Winston-Salem Dash, a team which I've told you before, Darren. I think I even squeezed it once into one of your updates. At some point, I want to say it was fairly well into the season. This was a team, a couple games. I think they were 17 and 15. They were a couple games better than 500, and then commenced to lose about the last 86 games of the year. The Winston-Salem Dash, 43 and 76, 12th best out of 12 teams in their league division, 39 and a half games behind. So that's actually worse. I think that's worse than the organization. Definitely worse than Charlotte. Minus 176 run differential. That's hard to do. 361 winning percentage, and just a god awful team. But the good news, Darren, is we get to talk about the most exciting prospect in the system. I don't care all the other people who are not going to break up your prospect lists by putting this guy as number one. Okay, nobody's asking you to put him number one, but let's acknowledge an extraordinary season from Popeye himself, José Rodríguez, who basically just by MVP votes would make the all-star team or be the best player on two different teams in the organization. That's not easy to do either. Phenomenal year from José Rodríguez. Probably nothing more you can add that you haven't already said, but I'm going to still challenge you to do so. Darren Black, my partner on this podcast.
Yep. So José Rodríguez is obviously doing pretty well for a 20-year-old at Kannapolis. But he really broke out when he went to Winston-Salem. Over about a 30-game stretch, he had a 141 WRC plus, OPS in the 900s, which is fantastic for any sort of middle infielder. He did steal a fair amount of bases, though I will always put up the PSA that low A, new rules, invite more stolen bases. So it's not necessarily that he's going to steal 30 in the majors when he gets there, but it's still impressive nonetheless that he was able to do that more than others. The thing that I was most impressed with was that his power kind of stayed going from Kannapolis to Winston-Salem. He's more of a gas power guy still, but as I've said all throughout the season, I look at his swing and I see that it could become pretty decent home run power eventually. It's still a 170 or 170 ISO, which is pretty good for a middle infielder. You would still probably think anything over 200 is good power, which would be 30% higher than what he's at right now. Mm-hmm. But still fantastic nonetheless that he had 14 homers as a mostly shortstop this year in just over 100 games. And obviously we're going to keep an eye out for him for the rest of his career, even if he starts doing poorly next year, which I do not expect. But he's kind of forced the issue. He's going to be in Double A to start the year next year at least. He just hit a grand slam the other day for the Arizona Fall League team, the Glendale Desert Dogs, which is fantastic that he's even there to begin with, since he was at Kannapolis to begin the season as a 20-year-old. So guy to watch. Maybe not the best season this year, but he certainly went up all the prospect rankings. And if you put him number one or not, no one thought you'd be having that conversation to start the year.
Trooper Galactus, who has just officially joined our staff after being an informal contributor for quite some time, has adopted. I believe he is actually renting a room out to José Rodríguez right now. He has adopted José as his absolute number one prospect in the system. And he is listening right now, just itching to break into a goddamn farm podcast, any sort of podcast, just to talk about Popeye. You'll get your chance, Trooper. Okay, for such a horrible team, at a team that wasn't always horrible, didn't start horrible. A number of just terrific names and promising names came through. We've addressed Yolbert Sanchez in the prior podcast with the Birmingham Barons. So go listen to it if you didn't. If you're skipping around, I know what you're doing. Go in order. Come on, people. But of course, the guy who is on track to be the pitcher of the year, whether or not it's probably going to make Darren just shake his head and spit. But the guy who was on track to probably be the pitcher of the year, Taylor Varnell, was on that team and just retired. Okay. Once he got to Birmingham. Luis Corbello started out really hot, then sort of like reverted back to Luis Corbello. But a couple of guys who sort of bounced back and forth between Kannapolis and Winston-Salem. The first being Luis Mieses, who actually would rank as the number 2 player on our listing behind José Rodríguez in terms of just the MVP votes. He ended up, you could say, more than putting it together. He was stellar this year, and in a smaller sense, but still very significant as one of the best players in the organization, Harvin Mendoza. 2 guys who got an early setback, got an aggressive assignment, got an early setback, and then, took that setback out to the woodshed and did something with it, because with Winston-Salem, they really were standouts, terrific offensive performers. Does this give you some promise? Are these guys back on the radar for you? Not that they ever fell off, but are they more than ever on the radar for you as prospects for the White Sox?
Yeah, so I would say out of Mieses and Harvin Mendoza, who both started in Winston-Salem, then because of atrocious play, they were demoted, and then kind of rediscovered their own, how good they were in rookie ball. Got re-promoted back to Winston-Salem. Both of them did have aggressive assignments. They skipped Kannapolis initially. It became pretty clear pretty early that maybe they shouldn't have. But in Mieses' case, he just wasn't putting the ball in play when he's in his first stint with Winston-Salem. He was hitting the ball. He was crushing it when he got the barrel of the bat on it. He had an over 200 ISO in his first stint, and then got demoted and just became just a better hitter. The power did go down, but he was hitting over 300 as opposed to below 200. Some of that is BABIP related, but he just had a much bigger strikeout rate than normally for him. And he is already a very raw player. So if you have a increased K rate for someone that young, then they're just not going to be able to do that. When he got re-promoted for the rest of the year, he had a 117 WRC plus. The power stayed, went up back over 200 again. And the batting average, of course, went up. He struck out less than he was at the beginning. He really improved the K rate when he went back down to Kannapolis, and that stayed. I'm not sure if he just needed some time to, again, all these people missed 2020. So maybe he just needed to get, a month through the season before he actually start feeling good about where he was at. But he put it together in Kannapolis, and it kept going through in Winston-Salem. And he's definitely now a guy to rewatch, because he was a guy coming out of the international signing pool that you wanted to see do well. He just really hadn't put it together. And this was the first year he put it together, and it was in full season pro ball, which is fantastic for him and fantastic for the Sox that he was able to put that for him. Harvin Mendoza is a bit different. He still did much better than he did after coming up from Kannapolis. He's just a contact hitter as a first baseman, which usually gives people the heebie-jeebies, because he doesn't really have much power. But he's a great contact guy. If he can somehow just become a more patient player, instead of relying purely on contact and maybe getting on base of 35% of the time, maybe that can put him up into more of a top prospect kind of role. But the bat to ball skills are certainly there. And if you can improve even in the power, if you can improve that at all, he could really skyrocket through the system if he could start improving other facets of his game besides the contact rate.
A reminder that this is your commercial-free Southside Sox on the Farm podcast. Take advantage of it, people. You don't have to sit through that minute. It's glorious. I'm here with Darren Black. We have been counting down the full organization. We have arrived at the Winston-Salem Dash. And it's a little bit painful. We addressed, again, don't skip there now. Don't go back and listen to Birmingham now. Just finish this one out and then go back to Birmingham. Somehow you missed it. We did address, you did address, Darren, Yoelqui Céspedes a bit with Birmingham. But what I want to ask you, given that he sort of made his bones to some degree Winston-Salem this year, aside from just reps, and the answer might just be reps, what is it, given that he pretty much passed his season with flying colors, What do you need? What would you anticipate needing to see from him in 2022 that's going to keep him sort of on this path that could see him in the majors and could actually see him as part of a right field, center field, or right field solution for the White Sox in the future and maybe in the near future?
Yeah, so I basically want to see the Winston-Salem version of him, 127 WRC plus in AA next year. I want him to be around that level. Even if he starts in AA or AAA, I want him to be in those 120s because that's what I always watched when Gavin Sheets was coming up. Even though his power was down, he was still having enough offensive production to be like, okay, eventually he'll get his power just because of the baseball. But he's still putting together fantastic offensive seasons no matter how he can. So I would just broader numbers just looking at that because he is 24 or next year will be his, I guess, 24 to 25 year season. And he should be doing better against lower levels like Winston-Salem. So I want to see that same level just at the higher in Charlotte and Birmingham. But beyond that, in nitty gritty, his plate approach, again, he hasn't really played much in 3-4 years. So I'm not going to be like, oh, this guy just is going to strike out all the time. He's not going to walk enough. Just, you got to hope that he hits homers or anything like that, or provide offensive skill on the base paths. I expect that to improve. His K rate was a couple percentage points under 30%, which isn't horrendous, but it isn't something to be happy about either. And the walk rate did fall when he got promoted, which usually is not that great. It was cut in half from 6 to 3%. So it was already at a smallish number. But if you just kind of want to see how he is as a professional baseball player, moving up the ranks, getting used to just better pitching overall than he's ever seen, plate discipline is going to be something to watch. And after the Arizona Fall League is over, because it seems like he's one of the starters on that team. And if that improves any iota down there, that would be a good thing to see, even if the batting average is low. Definitely want to see him be a bit more patient at the plate because he has a lot of power.
Yeah. Not to hog all the attention from other players we could be talking about from Winston-Salem, but let's quickly just address something about the Fall League because we got José Rodríguez there. We've got Yoelqui Céspedes there. What does this do for guys to be there? Because we see the White Sox in particular, maybe all teams take a weird approach. I mean, JB Olson's there for God's sake. So, I mean, it's not as if it's just like the seven most, the 7 merit-based guys go there. There's various reasons why players are sent there by organizations, including to showcase them, let's face it. But for these guys, both young, different circumstances, but both young, definitely new to professional baseball, full season professional baseball in the States. What does this do? Is this in your eyes? Is this really sort of like an all-star summer league kind of thing? Is it something that really is a shot in the arm just to be chosen, and then every success you can have there is really going to add to confidence, or are these more like just extended season for your regular minor league season?
I would definitely put it in the category of extended season, but the competition on average is much better than especially any of these White Sox farm system guys have seen, because their teammates are infinitely better than their White Sox teammates, just matter of factly. But even beyond that, like obviously Yoelqui Céspedes needs at bat. José Rodríguez, since this is more of an all-star kind of type extended season, that's just like, hey, you did awesome, you deserve to get more attention on you, and he'll go hit grand slams and get even more attention. But even beyond that, since we are talking about showcasing, I wouldn't necessarily say a lot of the White Sox guys there are showcasing, because you have Gilbert Sanchez, whose ceiling is limited. Yoelqui Céspedes is, I don't think, a guy the White Sox are going to trade right now. They just signed him. I don't think I guess he who must be not be named, that's in San Diego right now, is also traded like pretty quickly. But I don't. Which is why it's never going to happen again. Yeah, I don't believe they're going to do that. And I don't think they're going to trade José Rodríguez at all, because as we mentioned maybe on an earlier podcast, the second base is open and he could theoretically fit there. But even on the pitching side, Caleb Freeman's probably the best guy there, and the White Sox have holes in their bullpen, and he's probably their best bullpen arm in the system right now, and he's in the Arizona Fall League. So I think it's just kind of more showcasing to see, hey, are you ready for the White Sox? And if you're not, then just at least try to prove that whatever you're going to learn in the Arizona Fall League against much better competition, that you're going to be much better next year for it. But obviously we won't know those answers until spring 2022.
After the Birmingham Barons podcast published, I got just a nasty, just angry, but really more disappointed. It wasn't nasty. It was more disappointed note from Tommy Barbie, who said, Brett, you almost forgot to talk about Mike Rodolfo into a podcast. You could have done it in Charlotte. I would have been happy, but you didn't do it in Birmingham, and I'm angry. So I don't want to make that mistake here. I don't want to disappoint Tommy Barbie or any of the other Winston-Salem Dash super fans out there like Julie Brady. She's just waiting to yell at me for something we're forgetting about. So Darren, have we not addressed someone who really is worthy of some acknowledgement for this season? And that could be good or bad.
I think keeping it control on the Winston-Salem, we touched on Caleb Freeman a bit. Winston-Salem's really the where you start getting to where the bullpen guys are. And of course, you've got your Bennett Souzas and Andrew Perez's, but if you're looking at top 30 guys, it's Caleb Freeman, McKinley Moore, and Yoelqui Céspedes. All those guys are righties, so maybe not necessarily the handedness that you would want, but Freeman got a bunch of chances, late inning guy, so the White Sox obviously like him, and he's in the Arizona Fall League. 9 saves, did pretty well. Started out slow just because everyone had a walk problem, but really got it down by the end of the year in Double-A. McKinley Moore didn't really have a good season, but really high strikeout numbers. Again, walk problem, but he was drafted with a walk problem, and it was actually improved from when he was drafted. So that's actually a success story for Command. He just let up a lot of hits and let up a lot of fly balls, which isn't a good thing to do as a pitcher, obviously. But he also got 9 saves, so he's a late inning guy. So the White Sox, again, if you're getting saves in the minor leagues, then the White Sox think you're a good pitcher. Or not just the White Sox, anybody in the majors. And Yoelqui Céspedes moved up the most. He got up to Double-A. He went from Kannapolis all the way up to Double-A. They didn't really use him in a late inning role, but he's got decent stuff, really good command. If he can maybe get a little bit more of a strikeout pitch to him, he didn't really have that high of a K rate. So his breaking stuff probably just isn't as mature as maybe a McKinley Moore's or Caleb Freeman's. But definitely those 3 guys are people to keep an eye out on, just on the relief side. Because teams in general need them, and the White Sox bullpen, that was supposed to be their strength. Really, their farm system was supposed to be the strength with the bullpen in total. But now it's kind of, well, who's next up now that all the guys that you thought were good are not there anymore?
Yeah. If you've watched each of these podcasts so far over this last week or so, you might be going back to look now. You might be going to the Southside Hip Pen YouTube page and say, wait, is Darren still wearing that Kannapolis hat? Is Brett still wearing that weird black shirt? Man, these guys need to do some laundry. Well, guess what? We've got one more coming. And so keep on listening, keep on reading our end of season series, Darren Black's end of season series. Each time we're running this podcast, we're also running his year-end review. Hope you've enjoyed the one so far, including this one from Winston-Salem, painful as it is. We're going to get very soon to a couple days from now, a very exciting team. I'm so eager to talk about it. It's almost as if I'm going to stop this right now and just start talking about it with Darren right now. But you're going to have to wait a couple days. Sorry, folks.
I hope you do.
Thanks for reading. Thanks for listening. And we'll be back at you, maybe talking about Kannapolis sooner than you think.